For coming to the third annual NOMAS Symposium. Yeah, go ahead and clap. So we're NOMAS. We meet in AB 310 every Monday at 5 p.m. And all of you are welcome there if you have some free time on a Monday. Hope you enjoyed the pizza and the raffle and the art auction out there. If you did not, we will have a small time at the end for those who weren't able to, choose any art they might want to buy or get any pizza. And this is also an accredited lecture, so there's a sign-up sheet for LACES and AIA credits. We want to thank the dean and the dean's office. They've been very supportive, provided the pizza, and push us ahead whenever we're trying to have an event. We're going to have the dean talk for a second.
Thanks. So welcome. Good to see you all here. This symposium has kind of special meaning in CAP's most recent history post-COVID, because if some of you remember, as we were coming out of COVID 3 years ago, nobody was meeting, we weren't in this room, there were no lectures going on, and then the NOMAS crew stepped up and said, we want to do a symposium, and we want to do it in person. And so this was the first time, that was the first time that we all got back together, packed this place out, and it was just an awesome event. And since then, and actually at that event, people came up and said, you've got to do this again. So they've been very faithful to keep this going, and welcome to all of our guests. Your bios are amazing, and we can't wait to hear from you. So thanks a lot, everybody.
And I'd also like to give a thank you to Andre, who was able to make it here today. He's actually the president of the first Ball State NOMAS chapter, so I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. So we're going to have him come up and talk about our humble beginnings.
So you all can laugh at this picture. Go ahead and laugh at it. You can go ahead and get it out. Come on, get it out. So I found this board I was showing it to a couple of people, in my garage, and my daughter, who's here, she was like, isn't that from our garage? And so there's a bunch of pictures on here of students and people that David and other people know. There's the Black Student Association. There's a picture of me and a couple other guys when we graduated in 1993. That was as long ago as it seems. It was 30 years ago. And a couple other professors and students. But the pictures on this side are not what's important. What's important is on this other side. This board was hanging up on the first floor. I'll read it to you if you probably can't see it. It says, the Congress of African American Architects, School of Architecture and Planning at Howard University, October 8th through the 11th, 1992. And so that picture you see on the screen is the 4 African American students, the only 4 pretty much under African American students undergrad that were here at Ball State at the time. In my class, I was the only person of color that I can remember. And then the next year, CAP tripled it, and so there were 3 students. And so all 4 of us, funded by the dean's office, there was a professor at the time, Dr. Linda Keys, who was able to get us some dollars to travel to Washington, D.C. to this conference. And so what happened was we basically walked in, because all 4 of us thought we were the only students of color in architecture in the whole world. And so we walked into this conference, and it was like walking into Wakanda and Zamunda. To give you an idea, like we were meeting students from everywhere, from Harvard, from Syracuse, from all over the world. And right before this picture that you see on the screen, we literally had to separate and go into other rooms because we just started crying because we could not believe what we were seeing. And so after we drove back about 20 hours from DC very slowly, we were like, okay, we're gonna get money, we're gonna start a NOMA chapter, we're gonna get speakers, and we're gonna do some stuff. And so that's how this all started. And so I say all that to say use your voice, not just here, but when you get into your profession. Use your voice. Don't be afraid to go to the dean's office and sit in there and harass him until he gives you money for all the pizza you need or the speakers that you want to see or whatever. Use your voice, because that will start you on your professional route. Because if you don't take the talents and skills that you learn from here to use your voice, you've wasted 4 or 5 years. And so it's good to see that this is still going on. And so, yes, you can laugh at those outfits because they're probably going to come back in style sooner or later. So thank you for keeping this going, and thank you for the invitation. And it's good to see some people that I've worked with before on this panel. So thank you.
And I'd also like to thank the faculty for their support. Joe Blaylock was able to donate some items for our raffle, and so was Amy Trendler. Thank you guys. And thank you so much to April, who has helped so much, and Olin Dotson, who's steered us the right way since my first year as president. And now we're going to have our students introduce themselves, what year they are, their discipline, and something about them, and then our panel, and then get started.
Hello, my name is Amir Canardal, and I'm a CAP first-year student. As of now, I just like to consider myself a member in good standing in NOMAS.
Hello, everybody. I'm Essence Smith. I'm a fifth-year LA student, and I am the event coordinator for NOMAS.
I'm Jacqueline Servin. I'm a third-year urban planning major, and I am the co-vice president of NOMAS.
You guys are going to share that one. I'm going to say something real quick. Pull up the slide. Another thing is, throughout this panel, if you want to scan that QR code or join this Slido with that number, you'll be able to post questions that we'll be asking throughout so that you can interact as well. And then I would also like to say Eric Knott was not able to make it here, interior designer. We were fortunate to have him wanting to be here, but he's currently sick, so he will be missed.
Hey everybody, my name is Jerron Tishner. I'm a recent graduate here of architecture. A few things about myself. I love art, I love architecture, I love music. I love the opportunity to make the world a better place every day by being the best that I can be every day. I'm excited to be back, and I find it funny, like I keep getting pulled back to Ball State. I love this school so much, and I'm grateful to be here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stephanie Owino. I am from Detroit, born and raised. I'm an artist, visual artist, landscape designer, and arts educator. And I'm pretty involved in a lot of ASLA and landscape architecture efforts, as well as I lead the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion cohort for the Michigan chapter. So I'll be talking a little bit about that today as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Rotina Tien. I'm a practicing landscape architect and urban designer and based in Indianapolis. I actually graduated from the MLA, like 7 years ago. It's hard to imagine that, but I'm happy to be invited back and share my experience and discuss the topic that you're interested in.
Hi everybody, I'm Brian Robinson. I am a alum. I graduated from here, these halls, in 2000, and I am one of the founding partners of Meticulous Design Architecture, practice in Indianapolis that has a global presence and a presence all over the country. And I'm also an adjunct professor here now for the third semester, and I really am enjoying having our relationship with Ball State. I really do love this place.
All right. To start out, I have a question. This could apply to all of you, but specifically Jaron. As like a recent graduate, what would be something that you think that maybe the CAP program didn't prepare you for, and you just had to figure it out once you got out of here?
I don't know. I guess a tricky question to me, because I think CAP fits a lot of things in, like a lot of information in. Like you guys kind of know the energy, how it is when you're in here. You know, you get your project's due like the week after next, so it's like crunch time, right? I think Cap, I don't know, like the way I kind of see things is like they prepare me with everything that they could have, right? And it's kind of my responsibility to fill in the gaps, you know? And then I also kind of worked to be proactive and like trying to figure out how to do a resume and trying to figure out what employers look for in a candidate for hire. I think Cap did a lot of that. I guess I would say Cap could do better is maybe pushing people to either get more involved and I guess be proactive about finding employment, you know, like pushing people to network more and pushing, you know, students to be more social in a way, you know, because we can get isolated with like, you know, this is my project. I'm gonna just work on this project, complete it, and then I'm done, you know. But the world revolves around people, so you got to figure out. You got to come into contact with people at some point. So like, you might as well get it over while you're in school.
Sorry. Well, I don't know. Like, I guess I can say several sentences I still consider like Cap being very close to me. I think I'm just here. I love to share myself experience as like a reference point for all the students. Like, if you want to choose direction in your career, how can you, like, what should you like refer to, or how would you build up this whole process? And I think that will be kind of valuable for the student. Like, you already have this concept of how you're gonna plan out your career in the future. In couple years after you graduate. Yeah, that's, I hope I can bring that to the conversation today.
All right, for another general question, this is for everybody who can answer it. This is just maybe to explain more about yourself, but why are you a powerhouse?
Why am I a powerhouse? Because I think I'm a powerhouse because when I was a student and I didn't have the opportunities, or I didn't know where to find the opportunities, it kind of ignited me to go look and create those opportunities for people that look like me. People have my background. You know, I went to college, initially wanted to be a civil engineer. Did that for 2 years, realized that that was something that I wasn't really interested in that much. So I studied, I found landscape architecture actually at our student organization fair. It's like where all the student organizations come together. And I was just kind of browsing through, and I saw this board of like plans and drawings and renders, and I was like, oh my God, this looks so cool, this looks so interesting. And that was actually what made me go into landscape architecture. Literally that summer, I switched out of my civil engineering, and then I went into landscape architecture. And even then, going into landscape architecture, there weren't that many people that looked like me. When I graduated with my master's, I actually found out that I was the first Black woman to graduate with my master's degree, and that was in 2019. So, you know, it's, you know, from when I was a freshman all the way to graduating, I was still fighting the fight. And now coming back, graduating, working with ASLA, I work with April on the national committees, it's like my way of giving back, but also shining the light on the opportunities that do exist, as well as to encourage others to create their own tables if there's no seat available.
I guess I'm next. Well, as I'm considering this question, the first thing that just came to mind is resilience. You know, life is a series of experiences, and you know, they're not all good. There's ups and downs. There's mistakes that you make. There's places that you find yourself that you never thought you would be in. And you know, those situations have the ability to define you. However, as students, you know, when you're thinking about your station in life and where you are, and when you're thinking about what you're doing, sometimes it's not comfortable, but the ones that finish the race are the ones that win. The opposite of success is not failure. The opposite of success is giving up. And when you develop that ability to take whatever comes your way, and whether it knocks you down or whether it puts you in a different place, when you just develop that ability to pick yourself up, adjust, reinvent yourself if you have to, but just keep pressing forward towards whatever goal you have set for yourself in life, that resilience is going to bring you success. And I'm a witness to that, and have done it just as part of my career. And then also, that gives you the ability to open up doors for others. One of the things that I feel blessed about right now is that the positions that I find myself in, I can reach back and help a lot of people. And that just cannot be explained how that feels. And if you're the type of person that, gets to a certain point, you're like, hey, I got here on my own, everybody else has to get on their own, then you're not going to go much farther. But if you're the opposite to that, then the floodgates are open.
I can add a little bit to that. I think there is a power of giving back, or through giving out your own energy, you also get something in return. And in the process, you can build up your own community. That's you're like a momentum, the force you're building. So that that's how I see myself is doing. What I am doing is inspiring people with similar background, or they are on their own journey, but I really wish they can go through those barriers and just come along and step forward in their journey.
I would agree with everything. I think the key thing I would say is resilience, not giving up. It took me 7 years for an undergraduate degree, which is crazy. But if you really want something, you got to put in the work to do it. And the goal is to make the world a better place, right? I can't quit on that per se. What if things depend on it?
All right, so I'm going to ask, what cultural influences and experiences growing up affected the way that you design now? Yeah, for everybody.
I would say probably the biggest thing that affects how I design is hip hop. Hip hop exposed me to a lot of things. Hip hop exposed me to my faith. Hip hop exposed me to rhythm. Hip hop exposed me to space, the environment, storytelling. A lot of the things that you see in architecture, whether it's rhythm, storytelling, style, language, a lot of these things, I would say hip hop is probably the biggest. And then right after hip hop, I was a nerd in ARC 100, so all those projects. I don't know if Miguel San Miguel teaches it anymore, but Miguel used to teach it, and he would kind of walk up with headphones on, and it would be this thematic grand entrance, and he would talk about all of these huge, great architects, and I'm like, one of these days I'm gonna design something, and that's So that everybody that Brian, Damon, the people who I look up to, I think they inspire me most, and all those architects.
What cultural influences and experiences growing up affected the way that you design now?
I would say just thinking outside the box. I'm a Nigerian American, so my parents are Nigerian, and resiliency is something that many of us have mentioned on the panel, but I think just resilience in thinking outside the box. Landscape architecture is pretty white. And as a black person coming in with African heritage, I think I'm able to bring a different perspective and understanding into the spaces, as well as being able to connect to people, different people that look like me, as well as people that do not look like me, as well as people who do not speak English, right? And so I think in that essence, it challenges my own upbringing, my own understanding of designing spaces outside of what I learned inside the classroom. So that's what I'll add.
Well, I grew up in a completely different culture. I actually came to Ball State as an international student. So, like I grew up in China. And then what I grew up, like the culture background, is so different from what I accepted or experienced over here. So that kind of gave me a different perspective of how you can approach things and how you can be more inclusive or actually building up. It's easier to think out of the box because like literally everything was out of the box for me. So, that from that point, I think it's easier to then you want to find your original point and where you want to go. You kind of take a lot of liberty on where you want your design to happen, or who do you want to impact, or what influences you want to bring out with your design. So that's, all like designer can think about.
Cultural influences, I guess for me, it's really exposure to a lot of different cultures. When I was here, I participated in one of the study abroad programs. It was called Archiba. It's not here now, but it was where we were exchange students with the University of Berlin. And, I grew up in Gary, Indiana, and Gary, Indiana is pretty homogeneous, but to the minority side. And when I got to Ball State, I was in culture shock because I hadn't been around, as many majorities as, quite the opposite is often the case. And, I was in a shell, and I won't say I wasn't closed-minded, but I just hadn't been exposed to anything outside. I hadn't even been outside of Indiana except to visit my grandparents in Michigan. And then when Uwe Kohler, the professor that was teaching the Archiva program, insisted that I be part of that program, and he actually helped me be in the program. And I got over there, and I'm find myself sitting in the Bauhaus looking at, things that Walter Gropius and that group designed, and walking around Europe and just seeing the differences and the different scale of the cities, because all of the cities there predate the automobile. So it's a different scale, it's a different relationship with the built environment. And then also being in places where they don't speak English and realizing that, everything that we're taught is not always accurate until you go experience these things. And that just changed my whole life. And it opened my eyes to accepting new things. And it created an architectural style for me, which was very clean, very modern, very, the relationship to the users, that it came from that experience with scale. But that's what it was for me, was exposure.
All right. This question is specifically for Brian. How do you balance being a professor and being a professional at the same time?
Okay. I'm still working on that. Honestly, that is a difficult challenge, but it also, I think, helps me bring a different perspective to the students. Because, I tell the students at the beginning of all of the studios that I really only know how to do this one way, and that's professional practice. And the way we are learning here now is teaching all of the fundamentals, and is teaching how to think critically, how to develop your process of getting an idea out of your head on the paper, and it's in the realm of where it should be, of creativity, because you can't teach that on the other side. On this side, creativity, process, and exploration is what we teach. But in professional practice, there's never really a situation where you're designing in a vacuum, designing by yourself. And a lot of times, all of my studios have put the students in teams. And I tell them why. I say, because when you're on the other side here, even if you're in ownership, you're still going to be collaborating with engineers. You're still going to be collaborating with specialists. You're never going to design in a vacuum, and you should just get used to it now. And it's not easy for everyone, but it's just because I bring a different perspective. And the balance, it becomes easier when I can incorporate real world work in the students' projects. And that's what helps, is when I'm bridging the gap between what they're doing and what I'm doing.
Actually, what you just said was perfect, because that's like the perfect transition into some of our other comments from the audience. And I would say, how would be your involvement in things like NOMAS and other organizations you've been a part of affect like the whole design project process for you? Oh yeah, it's for everyone. I'm sorry.
So one of the most valuable things that I ever did in school was get outside of CAP, because it exposed me, it helped me understand people more, understand how to talk to people, and then beyond just getting outside of CAP, actually becoming like a leader on campus, whether my role was small, whether my role was large. It taught me something, and it taught me how to collaborate with others. It taught me how to, juggle all these different things, because in the real world, you might not just be working on one building. You might be working on like 3, or 2, and then you have different things going on with that one. You have different things going on with that one. You got consultants emailing you. You got to email back, and you got to manage like all of these different things. So I really think getting involved on campus, becoming a leader on campus, whether again how big or small, helped a lot. And then it also it sets you apart. For those who are looking at getting a good job after school, having those skills that aren't just taught in the classroom, that are taught in experience outside of the classroom, working with others. That's probably one of the most valuable things that you can do is again, get involved, become, a leader in some way, shape, or form. Like, I learned so much through working with NOMAS, working with Josh, putting on events, do you know how to, as a student, are you learning how to, set a meeting for people? Typically, if you're just going to class, is that a skill that you pick up, is how to set meetings with people? You might, if you have a team, if you have a team in studio or in another class, but, in the professional world, you have to set these meetings, you have to be there, and you have to talk and work with people. And then likewise, in like NOMAS, for example, we have our exec meetings, we have our body meetings, and all of these skills translate and make you a more well-rounded person. And I think, again, that's probably like the biggest thing that I got from, being involved in all these different things. And then also you get recognized for it, and it feels good. My bad to keep rambling, but this was probably one of the biggest things also. Like, when I first got to school, I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I didn't really have a lot of self-value, a lot of self-worth. And through, being exposed to architecture and completing projects, I began to gain confidence. And through that, I began to see what else can I, what else could I succeed at? I failed at a lot. I mean, 7 years in undergrad, I failed at a lot. But I learned how to roll with the punches, and I succeeded in a few things. And getting recognized for it is rewarding, and it helps you value the work that you do, and it helps that other people see the work that you do. And yeah.
Okay. Whoa, where'd the question go? It's gone. Okay, it was for you, Rotina. The question was, how does your background and experience affect your artistic? Yeah. Okay. How do you say your background influenced your artistic thoughts and processes? I was close.
Yeah. Wow, that's a very question. In depth, artistic thought and process. Well, it's an obvious question, but it kind of take a route, so I have to go back a little bit in time on my own history. So I actually choose to. I wanted to be an artist when I was in high school. Okay, this is going way back. But then, after I was like starting art, I was like, wow, I want something that's more practical, that has like more like traditional productivity value to it instead of being an artist. So I decided that, well, maybe I would choose to be a designer. You know, all this like, aesthetic study or like practicing art actually all like contributing to, I did a lot of rendering and graphics in my firm, so that all contributed to it along the way. But then I started from industrial design. I was like, oh, this is very cool. You're gonna design something people use every day. And then as I dig deeper, I feel like, no, you're not going to change anything because you're just designing. People are going to use it and you make it better. So I thought maybe if I skill up, I can become like a landscape architect, and then I can I can have a bigger social impact. So that's when I came to Ball State. I choose to become a landscape architect so that you can create a site that everybody will enjoy. You know, that's like how I want to, what I value. And then as I become landscape architect, and then I thought maybe I can do something even bigger. so I choose to get another urban design degree. So it's all like building up, but in my urban design project, I was trying to incorporate all the principles and the knowledges I earned from landscape architect background. So, you know, it's all contributed along the way. I don't know if that answered the question.
Here's a question also general to everyone is, what obstacles did you have to overcome in regards to being a minority in order to get to where you are now?
Oh, wow. Quite a few. It's, how much time we got? The first thing that you're faced with when you're students as a minority is what I have come to understand is just human nature. People gravitate towards similarities and, you know, what they're comfortable with, what they know. And, you know, when Damon and I were walking these halls, there were far less minorities. And, you know, we found ourselves, we were like the only ones in our class. And when, you know, especially like in structures, when the classes are hard and everyone gets in study groups, you know, we're not included in the groups. You have to be a certain type of personality to overcome that. And that's one of the obstacles is just finding a way to be included. And, you know, for me, myself, carrying the different experience and baggage from where I came from, where I grew up, you know, I didn't relate to a lot of the stories and the lifestyles that my peers were representing, and there was subtle differences, and that has a way of messing with your, you know, thought process and your own self-image, and that's another thing that you have to overcome. But on the other side, in the professional practice, oh my goodness. It's the same thing, just magnified, and then even to the degree, because what I experienced going into architecture firms is that there are a lot of practices, because there are so few minorities, there are a lot of practices where there are people in the firms that have worked their entire careers and never had to work with a minority in their professional career in terms of in their office. And because I used to tell people to do this all the time. If you just, go online and look at 10 architecture firms' websites and just look at the people. Now it's a lot more diverse, but even in that, it's not many African Americans. It's a lot more females and people of color from other nations, but not many African Americans. And that was even magnified 25 years ago. And you literally could be in an office and nobody knows how to relate to you because they've never had to work with a minority. And the things that are said, the things that are done, how, the jokes that are going around, all of that, you just have to learn how to overcome. But then in professional practice as an owner, there's a stigma that's associated to minority firms that you have to overcome. And one of the things that we're dealing with right now is that we have zero margin for error. When we're on a project, if we make the smallest mistake on the project, it's just everything goes haywire. And we're scapegoated, where everyone's like, I knew it, they just, not quite to that degree, but in their actions, that's how we're dealt with. It's almost like we get our nose rubbed into it and then we get blacklisted, we don't get another opportunity, whereas, there's always things that happen in the course of a project. Nobody puts out a 400-page drawing set and there's no mistakes, there's no issues that aren't coordinated. But in professional practice for minority firms, we just don't get that same grace of making the mistakes. And that's something that that challenges us every day. And you just have to overcome it.
I think for me, the obstacle can be like when you go into a field, I think it probably applies for a lot of us, actually. Like, you realize, oh, nobody's representing you. And then you're like, at the beginning, right? At the beginning, you don't know anything, and you step in the room, it's like nobody's representing you. But then you kind of like, I don't know, like you want more power and more agency for yourself. But like, I think at the beginning it's very natural for everyone just to look for someone like more powerful to represent you, like anyone that you can relate it to, and hope that they will spread your voice and I don't know, like bring out your identity. But it's in the process that you practice this muscle, that you know how to take agency into your own action, and then you advocate yourself and you look around and see who else you can also help. Just like a process. Like at the beginning, it's like a little bit lonely and you don't know. It's like helpless. You don't even know where to start. But then after, I don't know, it's a process. You just learn how to be in the room, but have your own voice.
Yeah, I would just add, definitely advocate for yourself, use your voice, speak up, say stupid questions. I know sometimes you might, is that a stupid question? Even if it is stupid, let it be stupid. As long as it come out your mouth, somebody in the room will help you justify what you're trying to say. And then really dealing with those obstacles, think outside the box. Go find other groups and organizations that relate to you. Don't sit in that, don't sit in it. Don't sit in those thoughts and ideas and the things that come to you. Go find your people. That's probably the advice that I would share and say. Even if they don't look like you, same personalities, etc. Find your people.
Damon had pointed out a book called "The Obstacle Is the Way" some time back, and I think that is something that I think really kind of can hold true, right? Because on one end, you're not the I guess majority, right? But on the other end, you're the minority, right? So you bring a different perspective to things, and I think anywhere you go, there will be people who value your perspective, regardless of, what you might look like. There will be people who will value your perspective. And if there is not people that value your perspective, that's a sign that that's not the right space to be in. And I think something else is, again, finding like mentors, people who have come before you in some of these spaces, and asking them maybe how they got through it. And then also, I think I think, again, using your different perspective, using your unique, intrinsic, idiosyncratic perspective to like shift the narrative, right? So I mean, for example, you might understand that there may be a stigma placed upon you. There might be, or even if there isn't, right? You understand that there's a possibility of someone having a stigma about you, right? If that's something that that might bother you, then proactively, I'm not saying change yourself to accommodate against it, but go the extra mile, if you will, to be on your P's and Q's about your work, because that's what you're here for. You're here for your profession. You're here for your craft. You're here for your design and your spirit. So show up, every day, ready to work. People can't deny, people can't deny hard work. People can't deny quality craft, and again, if they do, then that's not the right space for you.
All right, from a question from the audience, how different are projects in school than projects in the professional field? This is a general question for everybody, if you want to answer.
I'm experiencing this right now. Projects in the real world have a budget. Projects in the real world, a budget. Projects in the real world have a budget. They have a time limit. They have a time frame. There's a lot of, I guess, quote unquote rules or like criteria or that you have to follow and that you have to fall within, right? But I think that's also the opportunity to expose just how creative you can be, or how can you, get this design out, or how can you produce some quality work for your client and the people who inhabit that building or that space afterwards. I think that's the biggest difference, probably the budget, and then also collaboration. Like every day I go in, I'm talking to multiple people. We're all working on the same project and the same model, and we're trying to figure out how not to bump into each other in that project, and how to work together efficiently to achieve our common goal. Those are probably the biggest two.
I'll agree with budget, and I'll definitely say as far as they'll teach you about time management, but I'll definitely say the collaboration piece, but also more specialized people you can go to get the answers that you need, rather than, not saying that your peers can't, but you have direct people you can go who are being paid to give you the answers. So that's one tip.
For me, I feel like if you're a student, you have like a full autonomy of your own project. You can be creative. You can design a project that's just like built up completely with your own ideas. But if you're in the company, everyone has like decades more of experience than you. Like, how can you bring your own thoughts onto those table? I think it's a very important skill as well to gradually build up. In student project, if you have like a creative project, it's great. But if in a real project, especially at the beginning of the career, if you can bring out one idea to the table, carry it from the start to the end, and convince everybody on the table, then it's a success, And then while you're learning and getting experience from other people, and you're also getting support, I mean, if you can convince them your idea is valuable than what they can come up with, I feel like that should be a goal, like how you can bring the student experience into your real job, and also still have your own voice.
I definitely agree with everything that's been said, and just to add to it, the level of detail, that's huge. When you're working on your projects here, and I'm just speaking from the architectural side, but you really are only taking it to a schematic design level, and not even a full schematic design level, and just to think and take that concept all the way through from where it lands itself here to reality, and just the level of detail and the layers that keep getting put on top of it, that is huge difference.
One question that I have specifically for Stephanie is, what have you learned in your time teaching kids with like project art? So, yeah.
Yes. So I'm doing a 9-month teaching artist residency, as well as I'm co-leading or leading the Detroit program of my job. So I'm overlooking 3 resident artists, including myself. And teaching kids is youth education is something I'm very much passionate about. I love kids, probably more than actual people, but I love kids, and I love to teach art because it's fun and it allows me to utilize my educational background in landscape architecture, environmental design, but also to teach kids how to see it as a creative career choice. So I work with kids that are 4 years old to 18 years old. So these are like elementary school kids up to high schoolers. And for me, I see it as their first viewpoint of seeing what a creative career can take you. Prior to me, doing civil engineering, I did do art in high school as well. I studied to be a visual artist. And we're trying to figure out a way to kind of get back into it. So once I started to do my teaching artist residency, it was my way of giving back, but also seeing how I can provide impact to the youth on choosing creative careers, even if it is to just be a traditional artist. But art is what led me into landscape architecture. So that's how I am able to kind of give that back and share with the youth so that they can see themselves being a landscape architect or designer, artist, graphic designer, whatever they choose, but to feel confident in pursuing art.
Actually, I have another question specifically for you. How have Detroit's urban agriculture programs affect your designs?
Urban agriculture programs. I didn't study urban agriculture.
All right. To answer that question. Okay. Another question that I have for everyone. Okay. This was another question from the audience. How do you overcome having designer's block? This is a general question for everybody.
Designer's block.
I think something you're kind of taught here is to go through some form of design process. I think the best way, in my opinion, to get over designer's block is to change your medium. A lot of us tend to kind of gravitate towards only working in 3D or primarily working in 3D. I think a lot of us need to get out more and sketch in a lot of different ways. Sketch with pen, paper, sketch on everything. I know, like, y'all probably didn't know Hari, but Hari was my DCM professor, and he had us sketching on plates, napkins, like literally everything. And it taught me to appreciate all the different, how changing the medium that you sketch in can change your perspective of it. Also, building like models, whether it's just something like junky, like I got literally my thesis, the main design for my thesis project came from a foam core model that I tore up and then rebuilt, and I love that design. And it only took like 5-10 minutes to make. So I think changing your medium, and then last thing I'll say is, for example, when I hit designer's block, I'm working in Rhino, and I hit designer's block, I'll have my sketch pad and I'll start sketching in my notebook, and I even have my iPad, so I'll start sketching in my iPad because that's different. You can hit undo on your iPad. You can't hit undo with a pencil and paper. So and then also nature.
Yeah, go for a walk, nature. That's what I do. So that's what I would say is leave the computer, leave your home, leave your studios, go for a walk.
I agree with all the previous comments, but also adding that just listen to, I am a landscape architect, so I always have a site, right? So just listen to a site, look at the story behind the site. I think it probably for architects more about your audience, the users, like what do they need and how can you provide those experience to them. Also like making sure details are, the level of detail creation also is under budget. And I think if you can achieve that, you can be a great designer.
I agree with everything, and this has been said already, but change your environment. A quick change in environment can really help. And then also you need to have a good visual library in terms of precedents, people that you admire that have a body of work. It sometimes if you're just really stuck, just flip the pages or online, just look at some of other examples of what you're trying to work through. And you can find inspiration in a lot of different ways. Of course, you never copy, but it helps to get past that block.
Asking for opinions from people who aren't in your discipline or not in design at all, I think also always helps. Getting a fresh set of eyes on it and having them give their interpretation of whatever it is.
This is a question specifically for Rutina. It is, how do you use both landscape architecture and urban design? And how do you know which one takes precedence over the other in each project?
I guess, in the start, because in the professional practice, you always have like a client, and then they will give you a scope, and that's an obvious answer. But then behind that, you also because I think they each gave you these two different disciplines, kind of two different disciplines, but they all gave you different ways to approach a project. For a landscape architect, it's probably gonna focus on ecological system or more sustainable features, rainwater plants, circulations, very tangible point or design elements you can refer to, versus urban design. What my background gave me is how you study a community. How do you look at the socio-economical background and what they need, or do they need, for example, what type of housing do they need? Or do they want to become an urban center, or the typology of the development? So that's two different skills. But I think for whatever, if I am working on a landscape architecture project, I can think about all my background or tools that I accumulated in my urban design background, and I can envision the right type of the park for this community. They just want trees, huge lawn, concert hall or something, or do they want a very intense playground, tennis, very active, green space? So you all looking into the context of this project and specifically on what you're designing for, and vice versa. If you're doing an urban design project, you know where to arrange the green space, how they can be a circulation, how to maximize that, and how you provide facility, it's tangible, feasible landscape, public space design, and you deliver to your urban design project. Yeah, so I think they can be incorporated together.
Nice. Okay, this is a question for everybody. What makes you want to pursue this profession for the rest of your career?
I think for me, as everyone already learned, I actually kept changing my direction, but I feel for myself, I know what I value for it, and I just keep going that direction. If that means I have to pivot my career, I would pivot, but I want to make sure I'm always going to the right direction just for myself. So great, vague answer.
For me, it would be this is the vehicle that will allow us to affect lives. The practice that we have and that we've set up, that's at its core what we're doing, is we're able to affect people's lives by controlling the built environment that's around them and that they find themselves in. And I saw one question on here that was talking about Gary, and it's what you see is what you'll be. And oftentimes what we see defines how we feel about ourselves. And, you know, especially at critical stages of our life. And for us, if we're able to influence that, you know, that's what really drives us.
Just adding to that, I feel like as a designer, we're like equipped with this knowledge about how to shape your built environment versus like people without the design background. I see the value in it to bring it to the people who's asking for this service, like how to make your space like from the professional background, like how can we make it better for the audience, the visitors, and everyone who's going to be using it.
I echo the things that have been said. Also, just with my background being an educator, I think I just love to tell people stuff. So I'm always just sharing information and just educating other people, whether it be my family members, community members, and then also with me taking a non-traditional route to landscape architecture, I think the impact that I am currently making and will continue to make will go far beyond my own years, just with sharing information. So, yeah, that's what keeps me going.
I would say what keeps me going is how like there are like some of my senior coworkers are still learning stuff to this very day, and I am a person who I wouldn't say gets bored, but like something just about buildings or arranging space, understanding how people use space, thinking about how can we solve problems with space. That really interests me. And then also, like, architecture is pretty much related to everything. And as a kid, I was interested in everything. I was interested in psychology, philosophy, math, but nothing too much. Like everything was almost like at a base level. So it's like I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I also didn't really value school because it wasn't necessarily like a challenge, and I didn't really have a direction. So once I discovered architecture and understood like that you're trying to accomplish an impossible task, essentially, right? You're trying to satisfy, you know, a whole group of people that you've never met before needs. And I think something like that, I think I could pour hours upon hours upon hours into. And yeah.
One question that our audience would really like to hear, I'd like to address this to Mr. Robinson. How has being from Gary impacted your architectural style in any way? Just a follow-up on what you just said.
It's made me think broader than just one building. It causes me to think about the why and the connective tissue, is a lot would say, in our communities, between our buildings, between our roads and our streets, between where certain things are concentrated and why. You know, that's what it has really done for me, because, you know, if you take a building, name any kind of building, and you just take it out of context, it can be anything. As soon as you drop that same building in the middle of a densely populated area, and I'm not even going to say urban, but you just drop it anywhere where it's densely populated, it can be a whole different calculus of the effect that building has. And that just was kind of infused into my thinking from the beginning, and that influenced my design style.
Oh, it's a follow-up. It says that you mentioned that the place shapes how you feel. To everyone, how did Ball State make you feel as a student?
Oh, wow. How did Ball State? Well, I mean, you got the university and you have the college, and the college here is, you know, it sort of really becomes your interface to the university, and it becomes your family. And really that's what this space and place did for me, because, of course, everybody here has experienced the jokes about, oh, you guys sleep under your desks, and, you're just always in that building. Welcome to the real world, all that kind of stuff. And, you look back on it and you're like, yeah, this became my family. And just being in these halls, that's why I enjoy being back teaching. It's just being in these halls, it just changes things. And it can become like a cocoon. It's like you're in here and you're just having fun. You're enjoying working on the projects, the things you're learning. It's just a different vibe. And then you get out in the real world and you're like, oh man, I want to go back. But it's that's how Ball State made me feel. It gave me a sense of community in this college, not within the whole university, but in the College of Architecture. I experienced that.
Okay, I have a general question for everybody. What's a mistake that you've made, and how did you overcome it and grow from it? It is a lot of mistakes. I would say the context of maybe in the professional field, if a mistake you have or a mistake that you made while being a student.
I can't think of anything specific because it's so many. But I think, and I wouldn't even say it's so many, right? Because, I kind of try to live by that philosophy of it's either a loss or a lesson. And I always try to learn something from it and grow from it. So I don't always see them as mistakes. I see, what did Bob Ross say? Like happy mistakes? Is that what he says? Happy accidents, right? Yeah. And, you got to bump your head to learn sometimes. And I've bumped my head a lot. Like under these locks, it's a lot of knots. So I think that's probably the biggest, just learning from your mistakes, like actively trying to improve and get better. I'm sure anybody else could concur.
Yeah, learn from your mistakes. A mistake I would say is like grading. Of course, you're gonna make a whole bunch of mistakes grading in landscape architecture because you're learning it. But I would say, how did I get out of it? I looked up to the higher classmen, like the upperclassmen in studio. I would go ask them questions. If my professors weren't available, I would ask my classmates. I'll ask other disciplines if they had any insight. If not, Google, YouTube, all the other resources.
It took me a second to think about that because I, just want to keep it clean. But mistakes, I think one of the biggest mistakes is when you have the sense that making mistakes is fatal. It's like, no, there's a relationship between mistakes and success. It's like you have to understand that they go hand in hand. And if you're so afraid to make a mistake that you paralyze yourself, you're not going to get anywhere because you have to learn how to deal with mistakes and have the right attitude about it. And the panelists have spoken about that, but that's a huge thing to get over. And it helps, with maturity and experience in life that you can start to get past that, but that's one of them.
Definitely piggybacking off of what Brian said, when I first got here, I had imposter syndrome. I didn't feel like I belonged here, and I think that was the biggest mistake. The biggest, feeling like Brian just said, feeling like you don't belong anywhere. I believe everywhere you are you're there for a reason. So try to get over that mistake of thinking you're the mistake in the situation.
This is for everyone, have you ever felt pressure to be the best simply because you are a minority in order to represent your community well?
I wouldn't say the pressure. If there was pressure, it was on myself. because I challenge myself to be better, be the best that I can in everything that I do. So I would say that's probably the biggest pressure. I wouldn't say because I'm a minority. I would say I developed a competitive spirit, and like I don't care who you are, I'm gonna try to be better than you. That's kind of whatever it is, even if I lose. Like I have one of my best friends. We played darts. We've played darts 100 times, and I've lost every game. But I'm still gonna play him again.
Yeah, can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
It's, have you ever felt pressure to be the best simply because you are a minority, in order to represent your community well?
I'm trying to remember. I guess, I mean, like, if you can just express your idea, but don't put, I guess, there is this, like, thing that you could put too much pressure on yourself because you might be the first, like, of your own community to step out. But then I think people will get used to it if you, like, keep doing it. Also, just remember they're, like, the worst scenario, they're just gonna think you're just one of the normal people. So there is not, like, a very bad condition if you don't do it very well. But I think the key is to keep practicing it. So having this confidence that you are, like, representing yourself and you are, you are the reason, you have a reason to be here, and then just do your part, basically. I think that will be enough. And also helping, like, others where you can.
I do feel the pressure. I mean, to be honest, and it's because of just the environment that we operate in. That as a minority, if you're not a standout, you're invisible, and that margin for error that we spoke about, or that I spoke about earlier, it's a real thing. It's just we don't get very many opportunities to make mistakes, and that is a pressure. And I've gotten past feeling like it was unfair, or it is, but unfair, or that it was disingenuous or nefarious or racist. I've gotten past that. It's just how it is, and it's not. How to say it? You can't look at life through that lens. You just can't, because that is a path to nowhere. If every situation you find yourself in, you're looking at it through the lens of, I'm being treated like this because of my ethnicity, you're doomed. You have to see life as, hey, everybody has challenges, and we have more than most. Okay, I'm not diminishing that, but we have challenges. If we want things to change, you have to change. And it's all about how you accept the mentality of how you're going to conquer obstacles. And that is an extreme pressure, but the way you win at that is to just have high standards for yourself, and everything else will fall into place.
I would also brought up a different, like a slightly more sensitive topic. So there are differences between if you want to represent yourself, like in a professional situation, or if you saw something that's like not right happening in the society. So those are like two different conditions, right? So for example, like during COVID, there's like this like a huge pressure towards like all the Asian community in the U.S. I think at those moments, like I think maybe everyone, I don't know, like, but I feel like I need to step out a little bit, at least like voice for like this inequality like situation. But I mean, if it's professional, I probably will stick to a professional line. Like, I'm here to be a landscape architect. I'll try to be a good LA, but try to keep it professional in a way.
I would just add, if you do come against that pressure, just remember it's you against you. At the end of the day, it's you against you, period.
I want to piggyback again off of Brian. I think I took the question a different way. There is sometimes there is a pressure, and it could be external or sometimes it could even be internal. Like for example, like as and it shows up in a lot of different ways. I guess we're specifically talking about architecture, but I'm going to apply it to everything. So for example, like you know, as a biological male, like walking at night, right? And you see, you know, someone of a feminine frame walking down the street, right? You're aware in a sense that she might be uncomfortable of your presence, right? So you accommodate, right? And that kind of, in a sense, makes the world better because you're helping that other person out, whether they know it or not. So I think, in a sense, you kind of have to. The world is like Brian said, like the world is the way that it is, right? But how we choose to engage with the world is kind of what we make it to be. So, like, you know, I'm grateful that people have come before me to kind of take on some of the brunt of these things in this field, you know, and I'm gonna be, you know, someone who takes the brunt of whatever I go through for the people who come after me. And I think that's kind of how we continue to move forward, because there's, like Brian said, there's always gonna be those challenges. It's just about resilience and showing up the best you can and setting that standard. And, you know, even if you don't hit it, you know, getting up the next day, setting the standard again until you hit it.
Nice. A question from the audience is, what words of advice do you have for someone about to graduate but unsure if they want to pursue the firm life? And what they mean by that is working 9 to 5, office, stuff like that.
So I have ADHD, and the college schedule drove me nuts all 7 years. Having a different class schedule every semester for 7 years, like, drove me crazy. But it also taught me how to be flexible. I don't know why the 9 to 5 life kind of has a stigma around it. But like, whatever you do in life, you'll be doing some type of work. So I encourage you to find something that you value, whether it's, you know, going into the firm life or something adjacent. There are a lot of adjacent, like design adjacent things popping up from even people who graduated in this school. I mean, you're an example of it right now. I know Maya Bird Murphy, who spoke, if that was last year or a couple of years ago, she's an example of that with Chicago Mobile Makers. And this school has resources to kind of push you into that if you do have a new idea. Or if you don't know what you want to do, then you gotta, I guess, figure it out.
Yeah, I would definitely say I'm a prime example. I just knew I was going to always take a non-traditional route. Now, when I did graduate, I did work at a firm. I worked at Smith Group. I actually interned there for 2 years. I graduated, worked there for 2 years, and knew that I wanted to work in the public sector. That was where my heart was set out at. So I actually left Smith Group to work at the Detroit Collaborative Design Center, which is a nonprofit design center at University of Detroit Mercy. I did a fellowship there for 18 months. And in the midst of doing the fellowship, I actually created or started my own art practice. So that's what I do aside from teaching art, as well as the work that I do with the Michigan Slate chapter. That's how I found my route to what I'm doing. You know, I gave it a try doing corporate and realized that it wasn't for me at the time. And I guess my advice I would say is to stretch yourself. Even if it's not something that you want to do, I did gain valuable skills and resources working at Smith Group that I don't think I would have gained if I didn't go to work at Smith Group. But don't set yourself back because of what you see other people doing. If it's something that you want to pursue, go for it. If you find out it's something that you don't want to do, that's okay. Just try something else.
Yeah, I would agree, and I encourage everyone to explore their own, like, just different choices at the beginning of the career with, like, a little less sunken cost to your future career. And then even if you experience, like, 9 to 5 and you decided you don't like it, at least in the future, if you have, you know, you're probably going to go back, and then you know how that feel like, and then it will give you a more logic based on your for your choice in the future?
I'm a non-traditionalist, so for me, it's like the dirty secret in life is that you can make anything work. And if it's something you don't want to do, then don't do it. Because your life is yours, and it's too short. Now, what makes something work over something else is how you put in the effort and where you put in, how you string things together to make that scenario work. And that takes creativity, that takes work, that takes drive. I mean, if the only reason you want to do that is just because you don't want to do any of the above, then you're not going to succeed no matter where you go. But the reality is that you can make anything work. And you have to follow your own compass and follow the North Star. I mean, the firm life for me was a challenge. Because I was still, when I got out of here, I was still trying to figure out my place in life, for all of the things that I was talking about. And I got into firms, and, I would move around about every 3 years. And finally I was, when I started the first version of Meticulous, I was only 30 years old. And it was just because I was done. I was like, you know what? I'm young enough that if I completely fail, I can start over. And I said, I would rather strike out trying to succeed on my own and carve it out my own way than to just keep trying to fit into somebody else's idea and picture of what I should be. And, now it's 16 years later, and I'm still at it. And that can be anybody's story. It's because you can make anything work.
Speaking of, all the choices and stuff like that, one of our top questions are any sort of like minors or anything that you took that you think would either complement architecture or help you to, build the skills necessary to like develop your own firm or, working for another well-known firm. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when I was here, I got a minor in business, and the focus was in entrepreneurship, and that just changed everything. So, that's part of this. I feel like the secret to success in my career is that in college, I had the fundamental training of accounting, debits and credits, business law, just the fundamentals. And it was completely outside of architecture. But, on professional practice, that just made it so much easier when you're faced with having to keep the books and having to figure out the regulations of being in business, just those kind of things.
I didn't take any minor, but I did take some economic class. Especially, I took this class. It's called Economics for Sustainability Management. It's talking about but it's still based on the traditional economics method, but then it kind of pivot towards a sustainability and how do you calculate cost benefits, analysis, those things like that. So it gives you a different lens. Because as a designer, we a lot of time focus on, for myself, I focus on the social benefits of something or user experience. But then how do you make it economically sound? That's another perspective. But if you can bring it into your project or your practice, is also very valuable.
I minored in environmental and sustainability studies. I mainly minored in that because I really want to learn about green roofs and green walls. In my art practice, I do a lot of nature and landscape-based artwork. So in that aspect, it helped me to kind of understand that from the more technical background.
My minor was in environmental and social and environmental justice, and I loved it because I have a strong passion for designing for community, designing for, so sustainability in a sense, right? But it's not sustainability from an economic standpoint or an environmental standpoint, but from a social standpoint. How do these buildings affect us as social creatures? How do we maintain these social relationships in the face of technology, artificial intelligence, media? Like, like how do all of these things take place, and what's the history that gave rise to all of this stuff? So, yeah.
Okay, this is a question for everybody from the audience. Does anyone on the panel struggle with finding a good work-life balance?
Yes. I have a startup outside of work, outside of working at Meticulous. It's a culture and arts group, culture and arts organization, and it stems from my passion of art and community. It's called the House of Groove. And again, we're still in startup phase, but we've held several open mics here. We have a bunch of things planned, and finding the balance between prioritizing what it is that I have to do at work and achieving that efficiently, and not dropping the ball there, plus making time for that, and then also making sure that I am maintaining a healthy standing in my social relationships. Whether it's with my girlfriend, my family, friends, juggling all of that. And I'm not perfect at it, but communication is probably the biggest thing that you can do. If you have having people around you that support you and support your ideas is one of the best things that you can have, because when you communicate that this really means something to you, they're willing to give you a bit of grace in that area to where, you guys, I don't know. I think I'm kind of making sense right there, but I think communication, right? So, like, for example, being here, I've talked to my project architect, and I've also been working started work way early this week. Like, instead of starting at 8, I've started at 7 every day this week, and then I've worked a little in the evening to accommodate for being here. And I communicated that, and that's ahead of time, and that's kind of where the grace can be given.
I would say, balancing and juggling it all is a lot. For example, so I'm an artist, I'm a visual artist. I submit my work to shows and exhibitions. I have to carve out time to put together proposals and submit those things, and that's in addition to what I do on my day job. So between balancing that as well as social life, family, friends, partners, etc., it's hard, but I think it's something that as you grow and you learn how to better find the balance. Sometimes it's lower on this side, sometimes higher on this side, but as long as you find the balance between it all.
I will add it to that, make wise choices. Like if you have chance to explore different company cultures, you will realize some company are more supportive for you to pursue your personal life besides work, or they might even encourage you to get out of the office at 5 and then do your own things and hope that you have something beside your work, and they encourage you to do so. But some other firms, they wish you to totally dedicate it to your job. I mean, it's also up to your personal preference. If you just want to, work 60 hours per week, I know people like that. They want to accumulate professional experience. You can choose the firm or the type of the culture that you want to be part of. I mean, that's just my own experience.
How much time we got? Okay. No, it takes work to figure out the balance, but the stakes are very high. You need to, on both sides, because I myself, I've learned the hard way both ways. Like I stated the story, 30 years old, started Meticulous. I had other things going as well, was pastor of a church and had family, young family growing up, a lot of things. And, you know, I eviscerated a lot of relationships because I never had time. And I was just so focused, and that caught up to me in a bad way. And when I figured out that you can't be too far to one side, you know, then you yo-yo back to the other side, and then you find out that, hey, that doesn't work either. So you really have to find the balance, but it's important to know what's important. And a lot of times we get lost in that because we're so far into the weeds on things, we can't see the forest for the trees. And example of that is, you know, if you just think about any stories of life, you know, somebody could be having an argument with somebody, and it's like, you know, you get a call a few minutes later and they were in a car accident, and all of a sudden you don't even remember what you was arguing about. You know, you don't even remember. And it's just, you know, that's an example or extreme example, but it's just one of them things when you're in the details and you fighting it, is sometimes you just don't see, you know, what's important, and you have to keep focus on that because there's ebbs and flows, there's ups and downs, and there's seasons to everything. You have to put in the work. You have to. But you also have to mind everything else that makes you who you are as well. So it's not an easy thing to do, and there's not an answer that any of these panelists can give you on how to do it, but you just have to work at it.
Did you have a support system or mentor within your identity group during your academic and professional career? This is for everyone.
I'll start. I mean, like, I actually have a lot of connections from Ball State, and as, you know, like, just always try to be mindful about who you are, like, with, and try to connect with people, like, no matter if they're gonna be helpful for you in the future, right? But you always wanna curate these personal connections or professional, and then, you know, just a way to carrying this relationship into your next stage. Like, if you're a student, how do you carry your relationship with your professor past, like, just academic? Is there a possibility to do that? Or, like, if you, like, switch firms, can you still, I think there's still value of keep some of the relationship from the previous where you were the life stage and on to the next stage, and always, you know, build your like own network in that in a unique way. I think everyone probably prefer their own ways to build up the network, but yeah, that's where I would start.
I think mentors are super, super important. Mentors usually have much more experience in life and whatever profession you might be in or whatever profession that they're in, and they can offer you, you know, priceless advice on how to navigate situations, how to navigate life, and they can challenge you also to, because they might, you know, see, you know, they might see potential in you that you don't see in yourselves, and they can challenge you to do more, be more, figure out, you know, your problems and solve them. So I think mentors are great, and I've had several great mentors, and I'm always, I guess, looking for more. You know, how can I learn from this person? How can I learn from that person? And I think that's it. Just seeking to learn every day and from every conversation.
Can you repeat the whole question? I know I heard the first half.
Did you have a support system or mentor within your identity group during your academic and professional career?
Man, I didn't have many. I had to figure out a lot of things. You know, I don't want to sound like it's like doomsday, but no, it was personal mentors and a support network. So support network that I had became the network of friends that I had here, and this brother right here was one of them. And it's made all of the difference. Having somebody that you can consider a friend and a family member that is there. You know, just being there is important. And then the flip side is also true. You need to be there for others. On the professional side, once I got out into practice, there were a few people that at different phases became mentors. I think one of the biggest mentors I've had in the profession is Drew White, who is founding member of Access Architecture. You know, that's a good friend of mine going all the way back to when I was here. And you know, they come and they go. If you get a couple of them, then just make sure that you hold on to that, because it is important.
All right. For the last question of the night, what is your professional purpose as a designer in your discipline? And like basically saying, like, what's your mission statement? Like, what do you want to get out of what you're doing?
Well, the mantra of our company is to be a diverse, world-class, global design firm that's focused on work that is meaningful, purposeful, and impactful. What does that mean? In our body of work, and in the body of work that is Brian Robinson, I want it to affect people's lives. I wanted any opportunity that I have where exposure or you know, something that has come from my hand can help or influence in a positive way. That's what my mission statement is.
I think for me, like, I have like two separate goals. Like, first one is always the community first. And you know, like right now is this huge discussion. If you go to the ASLA conference meeting last year, there was like designer as a facilitator, other than like us imposing ideas on the audience. It's more like, oh, they told us what they need, and then we just bring it to them through, because we have the professional knowledge. So like empowering the community, choose the right development for them. And the other side of the thing, I think everyone like should be thinking is also how like climate change or sustainability and how you actually incorporate those concepts into your own designs. I think that's at different scale as well, at how you detailing concrete or go up as like how do you incorporate like a green infrastructure in the city or urban system. Like all those, you just find opportunities to tie in where you can, you know, where's your opportunity to be a designer.
Mine would be creating spaces and places for the people who live within it, surrounding around it. And then also just being very community focused and mission driven. That's what drives me in the work that I do.
It's a lot. I'm gonna summarize though. At the bare base level, my goal and purpose is to carry weight competently, and by that I would say carry as much responsibility, as much purpose, as much meaning, as much change that I can competently carry in this world. I think that's my purpose and my mission. You know.
Can we get a round of applause for them?